Hey everyone, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going over the Enhanced Shaman Covenant abilities. We're going to be diving into it. I have a different video about Ellie, I have a different video about Resto, and then I'll have a different video about looking at all of them together. If you want to play all the specs of Shaman, what do you want to go? But this one is just focused around your Enhanced Shamans. Now, Enhanced Shamans had so many changes, and now we're going to factor those into when we pick our Covenant ability. And if you guys are watching this, probably 85% of you have not subbed to the channel yet. I want to convince you to sub with this video. So with that being said, let's jump into it. First up is Kyrian. Kyrian, as you guys probably know, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't, I don't, is this button. This is the first one. So for Covenant, Kyrian itself, every Kyrian, no matter what class you are, gets this. Calls a steward to you, bringing a vial of serenity. You get that vial. Where did it go? Here it is. You have 3 stacks. It says restores 15% health, reduce all diseases, poisons, cures, curses, and bleeds affecting you. To be honest with you, you can't use it in PvP though. So it's a little sad. In PvE, I also don't think it's that great. It looks like it is apparently the only place it's really useful is in a BG or a casual PvP environment, but not in Arena, oddly. Unless they change that, this is not very good. It just doesn't really weigh that much in PvE content. Now, the other ability is Vesper Totem. Vesper Totem. Summon a totem at the target location for 30 seconds. It causes your next 3 damaging spells or abilities to cause the totem to pop for about 1k damage to 6 enemies. Remember, the number of targets is important because that's what has been really tuned in Shadowlands. And your next 3 healing abilities will heal 6 allies near the totem for 900. So we'll use that in a second. The other thing I just want to make quick mention is I have this going. I have a total breakdown of all the stats. This is what we're going to be going over today, and some comparisons, which we'll jump to. If you want to not listen to me here, pause the video here and look at this. But anyway, we'll jump into the rest of it. So let's go ahead and use Vesper Totem. As an Enhanced Shaman, I'm going to be close to my enemies, right? I'm going to drop Vesper, and then so that took a global, and then I'm going to use any ability, and it pops. I'm going to use another ability, it pops. I'll use another ability, it pops. That popping AoE does 1k, and a maxing of 6 targets. Pops 3 times. That's up to 18k damage. Similar to Ellie, it's exactly kind of the same potential output. Now, what I'll tell you though is, to be honest, it's as an enhanced, it's a little bit easier to micromanage in PvE because you're in there and you're closer to the target. But replacing it, like moving it around, you can move it around, and it's not on the global. It will just have a cooldown to that. That's nice, and it does do pretty good damage. Overall, it's a 1-minute cooldown. That's a lower cooldown than some of the other Covenant abilities, so it's actually pretty good in PvE and Mythic Plus situations to use it. The heals is a nice touch, but you do have to be moving it around with your pack of mobs as it's moving. For single target, it's okay doing 3k damage with the 3 procs on a single target situation. It's okay. It's not the most impressive damage, and it's 1 global, and then you have to pop it. So it's not immediate burst. It's over 3 different globals. Well, technically 4. But yeah, so that's basically how it works for Enhance. And it's pretty good. Like, the AoE damage is pretty nice. The healing can be pretty decent. The only problem comes in PvP, where if you put it down, it only has 5 HP, as you've probably seen in the other Ellie video. All the videos down in the description. 5 HP is tiny. I can just run up to it and just melee it once and it's gone. So in PvP, it's not quite as viable. If you're an Ellie, it's a little bit easier because you're at range. You can see the full battlefield, right? But if you're in here deep with, in PvP in 3s or whatever, you're going to be fighting. You're not going to have time to summon it over here, bring it in when you need it. But that's what you'll have to do if you choose to go Kyrian, because what you can do, and what I'll show you, is you can spawn it over here. And then you can bring it in and pop it within a global. Because moving it doesn't take a global, just spawning it does. So let's say, for example, I'm in here doing God's work. And, I'm just doing my rotation, right? And all of a sudden, I want to use my Vesper Totem. I probably should summon it over here. And then I should get ready, and then what I should do is right before I use an ability, I should move it in and then pop it. So they don't get a chance within that first global to really do anything about it. So with that in mind, it could be okay to get that first pop off, but to be honest, the second and third pops in PvP will be tough because they're going to be paying attention to it. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you might even want to pop it. You might even want to pop it and then move it out, and then bring it back in to pop it again, like potentially, which is a crazy thing to say, but that's how you could keep it safe potentially. But anyway, that's what I think. It's actually overall pretty good damage. And again, here I've gone over that. That's Venthyr. Kyrian, max targets is 18k, two targets 6k, one target's 1k. A few things to know: it doesn't. This is only for Ellie. Healing Stream does proc it though, so if I use Healing Stream, it will proc the heal, which is kind of nice. So you pop a heal and you also get the Healing Stream totem. So that's pretty useful. The other thing is the Soulbind itself. Sorry, it's right here. It's this Vesper totem is 100% more effective against the nearest to it. It doesn't actually work right now, but would be nice. Instead of doing 1k to that target, it would do 2k, and so that's actually pretty good damage. 2 times 3, 8k to that target, 6k to the other things. Not bad. Not bad. It is pretty good. The only thing I'll say is that the Swolkin, this, our buddy that summoned the potion, that's just not very useful in PvP. It should be. I don't know why it's not, but you can't use it in arena yet. Hopefully they do change that, or else this is going to be kind of a rough one. Like I said, the cons of this covenant are 5 HP on that totem, and the fact that that potion isn't usable in PvP. Those are the downsides. Good side is that it does decent damage, and it's only 1 global. But, yeah. It doesn't burst the highest of the Covenant abilities, but it does a pretty decent job. So that's that. So let's go ahead and jump to the next Covenant. Alrighty, on to Necrolord. As you may or may not know, Necrolord has one of the best overall Covenant abilities from a PvP perspective, Fleshcraft. Forms a shield of flesh and bone over you, absorbing 20% damage. 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. This actually works in arena. You can precast before the doors open. It actually could be decent in Mythic Pluses if you need a defensive for a big boss mechanic. Maybe you can ignore or live through with Tyrannical, for example. So those things it's nice, and I personally think that this is a bit overpowered. I think that the fact that this is such a big shield and the fact that it lasts for 2 minutes is kind of silly. I wish they would rework this for PvP standpoint. I just don't think... I don't want to go Necrolord because there's a shield that's broken in PvP. Like, that doesn't change my character. It doesn't change my play style. It doesn't augment how I play. It just makes me, have this huge shield, right? Now, the next one is Primordial Wave. Primordial Wave for Ellie was kind of a bigger deal. This one's interesting because it does similar things to the other, for Ellie and Resto, but this is blast your target with Primordial Wave, dealing 1.3k damage and applying Flame Shock to the target. Your next Lightning Bolt will also hit the targets affected by your Flame Shock. So as Ellie, we were doing this and getting this on 6 targets and using Lava Burst, spreading it to 6. It was okay. It also gave you Fulmination. This is different, and it's kind of interesting, because Enhanced now has Stormkeeper. So that could actually... Okay, well, now I'm starting to see some synergy here between Primordial Bolt. Maybe I can spread my Stormkeeper bolts. Okay, and I have Earthen Spike, increasing the nature damage taken. Okay, starting to look okay. The only thing is, as an Enhance, this ability, in reality, like if I'm in PvE or PvP, I already have a very, I won't say complicated, but I have an AoE rotation that takes a lot of buttons. And this is a little disruptive if I was going to purposely do this with AoE in mind. So I would think about this as being a burst ability. So let's go ahead and see how it feels and what it looks like from a burst perspective. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and just focus on let's do 3 targets. I'll do that one. So again, this takes a while to set up, right? So I'll do it to this target, and then I have to go ahead and I have to use Primordial Bolt. And then I'm going to use Stormkeeper. And now I'm going to Earthen Spike. And I'm going to use Lightning Bolt. I used 1 Lightning Bolt, and then I Lightning Bolt the other targets. And if I do it again, it's just single target, right? So let's go ahead and look at the damage of what we just did. That wasn't that complicated to set up, and if I have Flame Shocks running, it's realistic to potentially have 3 targets dotted. In PvE, maybe 2 targets is more viable, but let's look at what happened, right? So in terms of damage, what I did is I Flame Shock, right? I then used, I Earthen Spiked, and then I Primordial Waved, and then I Earthen Spiked, then I Lightning Bolt 1 target for 1.4k. It's not a ton. It's about 10%. It's all, well, ish, actually. It's not even quite, not even. So I hit Lightning Bolt on this guy for 1.3k, and then my other Lightning Bolts that went off, remember, I won't have any overloads because I'm an Enhanced Shaman, not an Ellie Shaman, went for 2.8, 1.2, 1.2k. So that actually hit overall those targets for a decent amount of damage. When you think about what does 1.2k look like? Well, 1.2k, that's about, most of a Storm Strike, that's a much more than a normal Lightning Bolt. So it's okay, but it wasn't like it was big bursts, but it did spread the pressure. And if I was going to be going Lightning Bolt, if I knew I was going to be going Lightning Bolt and Stormkeeper and Earthen Spike regularly, and that was the go-to burst for Enhance, maybe it does make sense if I wanted to keep 3 targets in PvP dotted up. In PvE, if you think about Mythic Plus, I'm going to put Flame Shocks on targets, but I have so many other things in my toolkit for enhance for doing cleave. Number 1, let's go ahead and make sure that we're buffed up with these weapon reviews, right? I'm going to be getting my Maelstrom weapon stacks up. I'm going to be using Chain Lightning, and then I'm using Crash Lightning, and then I'm using Storm Strike, because Chain Lightning actually buffs Crash Lightning buffs Storm Strike cleaves, and gives me more stacks of Maelstrom. So there's a lot of synergy there already. So I think this is just like another, it's another option to do, but personally, I don't know if it really makes sense from a Lightning Bolt perspective. And then if I was just doing my normal DPS rotation, I'd have to sit here. I could use my Maelstrom weapon stacks to cast the Lightning Bolt, or to use Primordial Wave, which will be instant cast using that, but then I will Lightning Bolt, and then it will multi-lightning bolt. Now, those were not buffed by Stormkeeper, so those lightning bolts actually only hit for 700. I don't know if that's worth using the primordial wave on. So, like, if I look at the damage done, primordial wave hit for 1.3k. My lightning bolt hit for. Oh wait, it's down here. Sorry, let's see here. Primordial wave hit for 1.3k. And then my lightning bolt hit for 1.1, and then it duplicated, and it did less. So yeah, to me it just seems kind of janky. It does seem like in PvE single target it wouldn't be really useful at all. In PvE Mythics, I think it's kind of pushing it, but with other things like Vesper Totem, Venthyr ability, and Nigth Fae, they're so intentionally AoE that I think that this is kind of very weak compared to those. And then for PvP, I think Fleshcraft Shield's OP, but I think this is being another castable ability that, I mean, sure, it can be instant cast, but it doesn't do the burst damage that I want. It's a multi-step process, and I don't think that's very good for Enhance, especially with all the other complexities going on. So that's what I think about Necrolord, guys. That's kind of how I would kind of position it. Let's go ahead and see if I have any other notes, because you guys were giving me some great suggestions, right? Fulmination doesn't affect it. There might be some legendaries that affect it. There is, okay, so Maelstrom Weapon will buff up the amount of damage it does, but it takes a lot of GCDs potentially, and to be honest, as an enhanced shaman, you can't be multi-dotting and seeing the full picture usually as easily. Usually you're focused on what's in melee range. So that's what I think, and we'll jump on now to the Nigth Fae. All right, on to the Nigth Fae for Enhance. Now again, you have your Vulpin form, which will blink you forward, which we do like quite a bit. It is good for mobility. If you think about it though, Enhance is usually in the fray, so this could be a gap closer if you're chasing people. That's what it will mostly be used for, or a blink away technically, but are you really going to do that? Well, probably in certain circumstances, like Destro Warlocks or something in PvP. In Mythic Pluses, I think this is just a fun, in PvE, this is just a fun thing to use. Could get you out of shit, though. Like, if you're in a shit pile and you want to get out, you just press it once, you blink away. So it's actually pretty useful, and it's not a cast or anything like that. And you also have increased movement speed when you're in it. You can't attack, though. It'll break you out. Now, Enhance is actually really interesting with Nigth Fae, because the damage that comes out of the Fae Transfusion, which is transfer the life force of up to 4 enemies in the targeted location, dealing 5.4k damage to each enemy over 2.8 seconds, is actually interesting because it scales with your mastery. Your mastery says it increases the damage of nature, so it's actually increasing the damage of this ability by 30% right now. If I get more mastery, it'll do it even more. So because of that, it actually is outpacing Ellie in terms of how good it is here. So with that in mind, if we go ahead and we'll go ahead and use it here, you have to stand still and you have to channel, which is not necessarily great for Enhance, because Enhance needs to be doing attacks, right? It has to be mailing. That's how you get procs. That's how you get Wind Fury and stuff like that. But in general, the use of that ability, it took about 3 seconds, right, to do that, but it actually did pretty darn good damage. It ticks 7 times for about 900 damage each. And if we look at the damage breakdown here, down here, the fairy people, it actually is doing 6.3k damage per target with a total of 4 targets max equals 25.5k damage. That is the highest damage out of any ability for like an AoE pack. But the only downside, it's a 2-minute cooldown. So that is a little bit sad. But the question is, okay, well then every 1 minute you're going to get 12.5. If you divide this damage in half, you're going to get 12.5k damage every minute, if you like on average, right? Versus the Vesper, which is going to be doing about 18,000 to 6 targets max. So it's a very close call there in comparison. The thing I will say though is that this does scale off your mastery, so that could be particularly useful. The Maelstrom weapon doesn't affect it, But yeah, the scale with mastery is very good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on the Covenant ability that increases the dealing damage, dealing more, 15% more damage, and also channeling faster to show you what that looks like. But in general, PvP, it doesn't really seem like it'd be that good because you're going to be in the melee fray. You're going to be able to get kicked really easily on it. So for PvP, it seems pretty weak, but the damage seems okay, though a 2-minute cooldown. For single target, it actually seems pretty decent because of just the overall damage, but again, it's down to 2-minute cooldown. And then for Mythic Plus, it seems very strong. It seems very strong in Mythic Plus, especially if you're going to be scaling with Mastery. That could go pretty high. So let's go ahead and get the increased buff and then show you what that looks like. All right, I went ahead and I put in the conduit here, 15% more damage. And I want to just remind you that there is actually this at the end of this tree. This actually increases 20% increased mastery per stack. This goes up to 10 stacks. This is actually going to increase the damage by the Nigth Fae ability as well by 20%. It can do some serious damage. So let's go ahead. I won't get any of these stacks first. I will go ahead and I'll just use it, and then we'll use it with those stacks of that soulbind tree as well. It's hitting for a lot, man. It's actually hitting for 1K now. So now it's hitting for 7K total. And it actually went pretty quickly. The channel is 2.4 seconds. So it actually hit for it hits for 1K each. So that's about 7,000. So that's going to increase 7,000 per target times 4 is 28,000. So it's actually getting to be pretty much where the Vesper Totem is, and you won't lose any efficiency. The only thing, again, is you would have to pop it again to get that heal. But the heal isn't really what you're going to be going for, I don't think, because it's going to be 15% of all the damage. We'll actually see how much the heal is next time. But what we're going to test next is going to be if I get max stacks of the redirected anima, okay, now how much damage is it doing? Because now it's going to get increased by 20% more mastery. And this doesn't even account for the fact that maybe I'm going mastery and stacking that as a stat, right? So let's go ahead and get that going. All right, and so I farmed up to 10 stacks of redirected anima. It actually took me like 5 minutes, so Blizzard does need to adjust this. Otherwise, it's just not that useful. Not sure why it took me so long, but now it's at 10%. I'm going to get an additional 20% increased mastery. So now when I use this, you'll see it's now going to tick for up to 1.2k ticks, which is actually quite a bit more than we had for the fairies, right? So we actually had 7 ticks. So 7 ticks of 1.2k is 7 ticks of 1.2 is 7 is 7 times, oh my god, 1.2 is 7k, 8.4k total. And then times that by 4, that's going to be like 35k damage. So that's going to be huge damage. The only problem is getting those stacks takes about like 5 minutes, which is too long. Remember, the cooldown is 2 minutes, though, but this overall damage could be pretty nice. All right, on to Venthyr. Venthyr is an interesting one. There are many different questions and suggestions that happened in the Twitch chat when we were going over Venthyr. So let's pretty much just dive right into it. The two abilities, if you don't know, there's two. The one that is called Door of Shadows. This is a teleport it's a 1 minute cooldown. It's on the Shadow School, so if I get kicked while casting that, I can just freely hex or do something like that. And that's a 1 minute cooldown the cast time's lame, and the cast time does not go down with your Maelstrom weapon stacks. I think that it should. I think Blizzard should make that change. I don't know why it wouldn't, to be honest. Maybe it's because it's not a healing or damage ability, but I do think both this and Hex should get reduced with a Maelstrom weapon. That would really be really good additions for Enhance. Now, the damaging ability is Chain Harvest. Send a wave of anima at the target, which then jumps to additional targets, dealing 3.6k shadow damage to up to 5 targets, and restoring 2.6k health to up to 5 allies. AoE healing is pretty nice. For each target critically struck, the cooldown of Chain Harvest is reduced by 5 seconds. Now, if I look here, this is the conduit for this. The critical strike chance of Chain Harvest is increased by 10%. This, I think, goes up to like 30% at the max level. So this could actually be pretty good if I'm using crit. I don't foresee Enhance prioritizing crit, but even then, the base damage is pretty decent. So let's go ahead and use it with no modifications. I could cast it like this, right? I could do that. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll do it multiple times because we'll show you the details, right? So it did that did 3.8k damage. Okay. That's pretty nice. So doing it to 3 targets, but it could do up to 5 targets, right? So if we look, if we look here at Venthyr, it does up to 18k damage on max number of targets. One target 7.2k, sorry, 3.6k, two targets 7.2, which is pretty decent. There's no cast time if I use the Maelstrom weapon stacks, which I will show you. And then the heal is actually pretty decent. That one crit, so it's pretty nice. So the only thing is that the cooldown is 1.5 minutes, which is longer than Vesper. But with the cooldown reduction potentially happening every time it crits, it could actually get down if I crit all 5, which won't happen. But if I do, it'll bring it down to about a 1 minute cooldown. So now what we'll do is I want to show you what it looks like when we have Maelstrom weapon stack. At 10, I can now use Chain Harvest instant cast. It didn't necessarily increase the damage, but it still did 3.8k because Maelstrom weapons, it says that it'll increase the damage of your the ability, but it didn't in this case, which actually is, I don't know if it's a bug, but I think Blizzard, you know, it's a little unclear to me why it wouldn't get buffed by Maelstrom weapon, because it does say your next casted direct damage or healing is increased, and it wasn't. So I'm not really sure why that is, but at least it is instant cast, and because it's instant, I think Enhance can make great use of this one. So to be honest with you, my view overall now, because I think, you know, I just want to show you that kind of taking a step back and looking at all the different Covenant abilities, and we'll show you here, right? I compared them all in terms of damage. Here, this is the same thing you saw for Ellie that I did, again, videos down below. But if I look at it, Venthyr is doing, I like the immediate damage, I like the healing, I like that it's 1 GCD. I really am stuck on that, especially for PvP specifically. That's a big deal. The secondary of it is very useful for movement, though Enhance is going to be in the fray, probably won't be as useful, to be honest. But maybe it soaks a kick so you can get a hex or something like that. So I think for PvP this could be very good, especially and only because they just recently buffed the damage. For Necrolord, I don't think that it's that good. I just don't. I'm not convinced on it. The only thing that's good about it is the fleshcraft for PvP. For PvE, I also don't. I think it's too complicated, too convoluted. For Venthyr, I think that in PvE and PvP, both the same. Immediately burst damage. I like it. Kyrian overall, I like it. For PvE, it would be great. PvP, it's a little complicated to make it worthwhile without the Vesper totem itself having more health, because it only has 5 HP. So that's that. And then for Fairy, the Fairy one is the most interesting one to me. The fact that you can actually scale the damage of the Covenant ability based on the Shaman's mastery, based on certain ability, you know, stacking that stat, can actually get up to 35k. That's insane. So the only thing I would say is that that channel is going to be hard to use in PvP, I think. Though if you get it off, that is a ton of potential damage. Now, of course, this is on 4 targets, but Venthyr's hitting 5. So if we go down to like look at single target damage here, like it could be significant with that buffed damage. And that's where I think, to me, it's between Fairy and Venthyr for Enhance. I personally think that I like the Venthyr instant cast feature, but the Fairy one, the mobility's nice, honestly, for gap closers, for Enhance, and the channel is really nice. The only thing is, again, you're not meleeing, you're not getting your other procs, and that's a little bit of a downer. And to be honest, the channeling itself could get kicked or interrupted, you could get gripped, you could get knocked over, anything like that. But I do like it. I think you could make it work. So to me, it's really between these two. I'm not going to pick for you, but let me know what you guys think. Put it down in the comments below. But that's what I think. And I wanted to just break down all the numbers for you. Again, I'll be putting this in a paste bin in the description, because I definitely think that this is a important decision you're going to have to make. Now, we didn't talk about the soul binds. We didn't talk about necessarily how the conduits interact with all these. And I think I'll do that in a different video, because those are very unique to, you know, to those specs. But with that being said, guys, put it down in the comments what else you want to see. Thank you so much for all the love, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.